Hello there, welcome along. This is Business Connections Live. It is week number 64, program 64, recorded on the 10th of December 2014. Great to have your company as always. And boy, have we got a really interesting guest for you sitting just over there. I'll tell you more about the man. Well, I'll tell you more about the man right now. Our guest tonight is Reuben Singh, CEO of alldayPA. Reuben and alldayPA were our sponsors at the Business Show just a couple of weeks back at Olympia on the 27th and 28th of November. So we'll kick off the top of the show and we'll say straight away thank you very much to them for actually coming along and supporting us at the show. We had a great 2 days. If you did come along and you saw us at Olympia, well, thank you very much indeed. We hope you got the information that was relevant to your business and hopefully you're already using alldayPA. But what goes behind a successful company? How do you get a company from zero to success? Hero to zero or zero to hero? How do you go about doing that? What are the techniques that you should be doing? What kind of person does it take to actually motivate a team of people to make the business that you're the leader of a success? And do you as an entrepreneur have maybe some of those skills, some of those attributes? Reuben, it's lovely to have you with us.
Thank you.
alldayPA. People have heard of alldayPA, probably haven't heard of you initially, maybe. Tell us a little bit about Reuben Singh. Who is Reuben Singh?
I'm the CEO of alldayPA. I'm an entrepreneur, serial entrepreneur, and I've been started my first business some 20 years ago at the age of 17. So basically been in business for a while, born and brought up in the UK. And always run my businesses headquartered out of the UK.
And based in Manchester as well, for that matter.
That's right. Our head office is in Manchester, but our main corporate office is in London, so we're quite national. A
lot of people band around the word entrepreneur. What do you think in today's society? What makes a successful entrepreneur, in your opinion?
An entrepreneur is not necessarily somebody who's just in the field of business. An entrepreneur is somebody that has a vision, has the ability to bring that vision to life and to lead people to articulately present that vision to them and make them believe in it as well. An entrepreneur is somebody that has many skills, but the most is probably his or her sincerity to their vision. That's an entrepreneur, someone who has sincerity to their vision.
I suppose you can actually apply it to a number of different walks of life, can't you? A number of different places in your life. It doesn't come without its risks, though, do it? And we're not going to harbour or labour the risks, but you've had your ups and downs, haven't you?
Yeah, I think like most people in business, as you go through the pains of growing a business, there's always going to be, success and failure go hand in hand. We succeed on a small scale and we fail on a small scale every single day. I don't think failure is only something that should cause concern if you've not learned from it. If you learn from it, the experiences that you can gain from failure, you can't gain from success. Success doesn't teach you what failure teaches you, as much as failure teaches you. It's having the humility to recognize where you failed, I think.
But I mean, when it crashed, I mean, right now, we've got a multi-million-pound operation. We've got alldayPA. Yeah. It's a service that's there to act as a PA for businesses. So if you want a professional receptionist to pick the phone up, to answer your calls, you'll never miss a call again. I'm using all your sales literature here. But that's what alldayPA is about. Yeah. But prior to that, you went through, you were bankrupt. Yeah. You said before you left school, before you took your A-levels, you had 100 people working for you. So you had that success, you tasted success, right. You grew businesses, then it all went a bit Pete Tong, yeah. You went bankrupt, and then you had to pull yourself out of that and to get back to where you are today. I mean, was that a difficult thing for you to do?
At the time, you have to always look at, ask yourself, am I being sincere to myself, my staff, my investors, and as long as that is the case, we all make mistakes. You don't at the time you don't think you're making a bad judgment, but in hindsight, if you learned from it, then there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, today we have a business that employs hundreds of people. We have an infrastructure of over 800 people, seaters in our call center. And we work for 23,000 companies. But you're right, it's grown. It's taken many, many years and hard work and restructuring. I mean, we started our business in 1999. We grew alldayPA very, very quickly. We spent a lot of money on technology. In hindsight, we overspent on marketing. We overspent on sales. A business is nothing without customers. And sometimes in the early days of a business, you spend so much time putting the infrastructure in place, spending the money on the infrastructure, you run out of cash. And that's what happened to us. We spent...
the classic cash flow situation.
Yeah.
But is that what it was at the time?
In a roundabout way, yes. There was unfortunately that we'd entered into a relationship with the bank. And for one reason or another, what we perceived, or I perceived the relationship to be, a lot of it was done on trust. And I think the biggest lesson, or the first lesson, is it doesn't matter who's sitting in front of you, always make sure you've got something in writing. That's
but the thing is, I suppose a lot of the time you stand back and you think to yourself, it's the if only, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I suppose the lesson is learned from that. Has that changed your opinion then to the way you work now? The circumstance that you got yourself into at the time, how has it changed you?
I think you should never say yes or shake on a deal. People talk about, you just get the right impulse and impulsively just shake on it. I always think leave it a day. Even if it's the best deal in the world, if you can, there's very rarely a case where if you don't do the deal right now, you're going to miss. A salesman will tell you that. But I think you should always reflect. Always take, if you can, a day, a night.
Sleep on it.
Yeah, it is. I mean, some of these cliches, like sleep on it, are so true. I mean, entrepreneurs, when something, they're like mothers and fathers with their children. If anything excites the children, they will instantly, impulsively want it. And that's same with a business. An entrepreneur, the business is like a child to him, or is to me. And if you see something, you get excited. Sometimes those impulsive decisions in business can go right, but more often than not, they can go wrong. So,
when you look back at where you've been, what were the big lessons that you think you learned? I mean, you've just said that, make certain, sleep on it, get something in writing. What were the other big lessons? Were there personal lessons that you learned from it as well? Are there business lessons? Are there personal lessons?
Unfortunately, when people say to me business or personal, for me, I get confused. Business and personal is the same. It's very hard for me to label them. But the lessons I've learned is, I think the most important is, if you've made a mistake or you recognize that you've done something wrong, the best thing to do is to admit it. It may be a decision you've made in business, reflecting with customers, suppliers, staff, whatever it is. I think sometimes not accepting that can just get consumed in finding ways not to accept that actually it's just a mistake. We all make mistakes, and I think entrepreneurs, you have to make mistakes. If you don't take a risk, if you don't make a mistake, you're never going to try. If you never try, you're never going to succeed.
Do you think there are people out there that call themselves entrepreneurs and really aren't? They're just, maybe just switched on business people, but they're not really entrepreneurial.
I think everybody has an entrepreneurial streak. I think in a business you have to understand, and one of the lessons I've learned is it's a team. Businesses is a team, and that's why I think when you see businesses or organizations that have more than one person who founded the business, if there's more people involved, I think they're stronger businesses. I mean, we look at some of the best companies in the world, Apple, Microsoft, Google. These companies weren't set up by one person, or there may have be a vision of one person, but you need strong experience. I always compare our businesses, or all my businesses, to cars. And in the early days, we just had the accelerator. There was no brakes. I am still the accelerator. I still look at growing and expanding and bringing our staff's visions aligned with ours, with mine. but you also need the brakes in the business. You also need the energy of youth and the experience of age. And that's the balance that is missing in a lot of companies. Not just the companies that are growing, but the ones that are stagnant. They have a lot of experience, but they lose the energy, enthusiasm, the accelerator. And it's trying to find that
Where do you
mix.
get that balance in your business? I mean, who brings that balance to you?
My board of executives. We have some very strong, all of them much older than myself. We have.
So it's just one on the accelerator, but there's a whole board of people on the brakes.
There's quite a few brakes. That there is. My father's the chairman of our organisation, and we also have my CFO, who's been with us for 15 years, and we also have some very learned bankers and lawyers, or ex-bankers and lawyers who now sit on our board, and they really bring a different perspective. And I think you need to understand. An entrepreneur needs to understand their skill, their strengths, but their weaknesses.
Do you think you would have set the business up the way you've set it up today if the bankruptcy hadn't happened in 2004, 2007? If you hadn't had that experience, do you think you'd have done it differently today?
Well,
or has that taught you the lessons to say, right, you need those balances and checks to make certain that the business has longevity about it?
I set up alldayPA in 1999. So we had 3 or 4 years of explosive growth. And then 2004, we had our restructure. Our guarantees were called in, a personal guarantee. There was a whole raft of court cases with the bank. But the main thing that always continued to move forward was the business. So the great thing that the one thing that we were grateful for, we were able to do was to split off, restructure the business, so no staff lost their jobs, no clients saw any dip in service, and the business just continued to grow. And then separately, there was a number of court case battles going on, which I think at the time I didn't believe, or I couldn't see it, but looking in hindsight, they were probably the strongest years of my career because they taught me the most. The early part of my career, 94 to 99, was literally, it was like a rocket. It was all up. And I hadn't.
What kind of things were you doing? Was it still call centres?
No, I was involved in the fashion industry, and it was very, very different. We were opening retail stores. It was a very different buzz. It was more of on the shop floor, really, but opening stores every single week, employing hundreds of people, fashion shows, shoots. It was all very different. And but it was. Only in 1997 I went to America, and we were looking at expanding into the US, and I met at a very good presentation to an American banker in New York, a very, very learned, astute Jewish banker from New York. And his first question, after hearing all the great stuff we'd done, we had a fantastic balance sheet, we were making phenomenal amounts of profit, and he said, "Can you talk to me about your failures and what business have you failed in?" And I looked at him like, is this American mad? Is he crazy? What is he asking these questions for? We're here about success, about growing our business. And it was only 7 years later that I realized that he said to me, actually, I don't know if I'd ever back you the way you are. Because if I back you now and businesses don't always go the right way, how will you manage through a difficult period? You've got no experience of managing through a difficult period. So I'm sorry, I don't think you're... And I thought he was mad. I mean, we had everybody, every investor, every banker, everybody falling over themselves to work with us. And here was somebody saying, you're not backable because you've had no failures. And how will you manage that? Will you be able to get up in the morning after you've had the failure and resolve matters? And it was only after 2004, 5 and 6 when I thought how true that gentleman was.
It's interesting though, isn't it? The Americans have a completely different perspective, don't they, on failure in business. They nearly see it as part of the experience culture. You need to fail once to have the experience to go forward to grow. But over here it's looked down on, isn't it?
I mean, it's changing now, but I mean, I remember in 2008 and 9 I was in Silicon Valley, and probably earlier than that as well. And every entrepreneur I met, the first thing they tell you about is how many businesses they'd failed in. And I met a multi-billionaire. They call him the father of fiber optics, and he's proud. His opening speeches is how much money. I think he had 7 bankruptcies and lost billions for his investors who stuck with him, because every time he edging closer to his goal, but he recognized where he'd failed. And I actually think sometimes entrepreneur 2.0 is always more bankable. If they've learned, some entrepreneurs will always blame everybody else for their failure. It wasn't me. It was my supplier didn't give me the goods, or my client didn't pay me, or the bank pulled the plug. They're just blames. I mean, yes, that did happen, and yes, that's probably what caused. But what did you learn from it? And they actually cannot tell you what they learned from it. And then, as an investor now as well, side by side to running our own businesses and growing my organization, I do serial investment. I invest in entrepreneurs. But the ones that I seem to have more of a connection with are ones that have tried and failed and want to try again.
Oh, I tell you what, we'll come back. We'll talk a little bit more about your experiences when you do go to other businesses and what you see, and maybe advice that Ruben would actually give to maybe your organisation. Say Ruben was walking through your door. We were having a bit of a chat before the programme, and he said to me, you walk in through the door and it's the same things over and over again. Nobody's reinventing how to go wrong. People are getting it wrong the same way all the time. And maybe what we'll do is we'll give you a bit of an insight, and maybe you're actually doing some of those things yourself. Maybe you're finding that your business is struggling a little bit. Maybe there is a fundamental error in the way that you're moving forward. The other thing, of course, is maybe your plan A and your plan B are the wrong plans to have, and maybe your plan B is the one you should be working on. We'll talk more about that in a few moments' time. It's interesting because the same kind of topic came up on last week's programme as well, when we had Chelsea Baker in. Now, Chelsea was our guest last week. She's a multi-award-winning business mentor, and she goes into businesses and she highlights the issues, the problems that individual companies are having. And then she'll stand back and she gives the advice and she mentors the business towards success. She specialises a lot in, broadcasting your business. She specialises in the PR part of the business, getting out there, getting the message out to your customer base, that kind of, really the PR and the sales, those two, the most fundamental parts of any business is what she concentrates in. It was a fascinating show. If you haven't watched it yet, I do suggest that you do. If you want a bit of a taster of what happened on last week's Business Connections Live, here, right now, is Chelsea Baker. My guest this evening is Chelsea Baker. She's going to be talking about, her business, broadcasting your business, which will be a real insight. And to give you a bit more of an insight into who Chelsea is, she's a multi-award winning business mentor and also entrepreneur.
Primarily, I am a business mentor. That's what I do. That's my passion. That's what I do. Day in, day out, I've mentored over 100 companies. And I love what I do because I get to witness firsthand the results, that happen right in front of me, which are a direct result of the guidance that I'm giving. Research shows that 70% of small businesses that receive mentoring survive for 5 years or more compared to, non-mentored companies. That rate is staggering. I help conceptualize ideas. I work on the PR, the branding, the marketing, the sales, the press side of things, absolutely everything. A mentor is supposed to be more experienced so that they can share their knowledge, their expertise, pass on their resources and their contacts. That's generally what a mentor does. I've got over 20 years business experience to pass on and share with everyone. Maybe now's the time to address the fact that some people almost get a little bit confused with what's the difference between a mentor and a coach, because a coach obviously helps, advise on specific things like, it could be careers advice or confidence and things like that, whereas a mentor does cover absolutely everything. With a mentor, your goals are achieved and reached far quicker than you being on your own. Firstly, there's cash flow issues. Secondly, they don't know how to market themselves properly. Thirdly, they don't have a large enough customer market size. They don't know where to find customers who want their products. Business is hard. Give me a call in 2 years' time, 3 years' time, because that's when you'll really start making fantastic money. A business plan is something that you need to adapt to and add to and change over time. It grows with you. Without self-belief, you don't have a business. And all I say to a lot of companies is, if you do anything, just keep going. If I had £1 for every time somebody said, right, I'm going to give thousands for a website, going to hire this person, they blow the money so quickly. And without the sales coming in, we have a huge problem here. So one of the things that I find is that companies are really doing everything. They're looking at, doing the social media campaigns, they're speaking to customers, they're doing the research, they're running the business, managing the operations. But then suddenly the sales has slacked off slightly, and it's like a wheel, you've got to keep it turning. And that's when suddenly you realise that the cash flow has dried up, you've got to start that wheel turning again, and it's too late. I have a background in sales. I didn't just suddenly get good at it. And what you have to do is write the little sales scripts to such, practice and actually hone and perfect what you're actually saying to the customer. There'll be a point when you're selling to somebody and they could just go, oh, right, okay. And then you know that you've gained their interest. And I am a great fan of natural selling. If you've got a good product or service and you've got created that exclusivity and that demand and that market, people will buy it. I'm Chelsea Baker and you're watching Business Connections Live. I've had a great time here on the show. My company is Broadcasting Your Business, which consists of one-to-one mentoring for perfecting your message, pitching and presentation, and press and publicity. So all those packages come into basically 6 categories, which is sales, marketing, PR, media, powerful public speaking, and business pitching and presentations. Those are the fundamental techniques and things that you need to cover and watch out in your business. And that's where somebody like myself, an award-winning business mentor, can actually help you. I've got over 20 years of business experience, and I can share my knowledge with you, share my expertise, and actually guide you through the day-to-day challenges that you may be facing. And I think it's very important to seek the services of a business mentor earlier on in your business, because otherwise, you could be looking at potentially damaging mistakes. And it depends how big your budget is, because some businesses, they may never recover. So even if you haven't got any funds for mentoring available, just be careful who you take your advice from and actually seek professional advice to help you. There's so many free resources on the internet as well available today, but just research what you're doing. And then I'm here if you wanted to get in touch. Have a look at my website, broadcastingyourbusiness.com.
Chelsea Baker there, broadcastingyourbusiness.com if you want to find out more about her. In fact, you just put Chelsea Baker and you'll find a whole load of information. She's also written the Pocket Entrepreneur book, or the Pocket Mentor book, if my memory serves me right. That's a really good read as well. If you are looking for some form of mentoring, then get in touch with Chelsea Baker. And as she said in that short piece there, she's talking to everybody, small to medium scale enterprises, small businesses, business owners, but also she's talking to other entrepreneurs too. And sometimes it's a case of the wood from the trees. That's the problem that you have. You're just too close to actually see the solutions. And maybe it just needs somebody to be standing just on the outskirts, just to the side of your business, just off centre, and they can go, actually, have you thought about this? Are you doing this? If you're not doing it, then maybe perhaps you should be. Chelsea Baker's the young lady's name. You can watch the entire programme if you go to www.businessconnectionslive.com and have a look at our watch again. Or if you're watching on our YouTube channel, don't forget, do subscribe. If you subscribe to the YouTube channel, then each and every week you'll get a notification when a brand new programme is going out. You just simply subscribe by pressing that little link that is just sitting just around about here on the screen. Press on that, subscribe, and then you'll know when the next programme is just about to be launched. My guest this evening is Reuben Singh. He's the CEO of alldayPA. They were our sponsor at the business show this year at Olympia on the 27th and 28th of November. So I'm going to have Reuben in the studio because really, whenever we've been talking to Reuben Previously, we've been talking primarily about alldayPA, but Ruben is truly an entrepreneur, a proper entrepreneur. He's been there, done that, got the T-shirt. He's been through the good times. He's been through the bad times. And he's been through the good times. And who knows what the future holds. Hopefully more good times is what I would imagine. When you walk into businesses, because right now, as a company, as an organisation, you are actually, you do buy other companies, and you seem to be, you do that quite a lot, from what you've told me. When you go in there and you see other entrepreneurs or other business owners, what are the problems that you see? I mean, if you were a mentor, shall we say, like Chelsea is, and you were walking in there, what are the issues that you most commonly come across, do you think, that really people should be able to see in their own businesses?
Slightly unfair, because when you're not in the driving seat, it's very easy to comment and to give your views on things. But bringing it back into my experiences and my world, the issues or the experiences that I've been through always comes back down to, the first and foremost is cash flow. Cash flow is always very important to any organization, and more often than not, when I've seen other businesses in trouble and reflected them compared to whenever we've had issues, it always resonates and comes back down to cash flow. And I think it's always, an entrepreneur is always very eager to please, very eager to please their clients, the suppliers, their staff, themselves, and they always want to do the best for their business. And sometimes you've got to look at the long-term goals and not at the short term. But most of the times I've found there's been problems with businesses. It has been cash flow, and also it's been the recognition of that you've made a mistake. If people were just to reflect and spend time reflecting themselves on where they've made a mistake, because sometimes they start to build the next levels of their business on foundations that they themselves know, or a decision that they know themselves is not quite correct, and it is a lot easier to start again on that certain aspect than try to build on it just because you've got too far down the road. And you find that if you unravel a business that's in trouble, it always comes down to a decision which, before you say it, the entrepreneur themselves knows that was a wrong decision, but I had to run with it because I made that decision. And that's really where that's where large organizations sometimes find a way out. If you're a large PLC, they always find somebody to blame in the company, and it's not a blame culture, but it's a way of saying it allows them to stop. As an entrepreneur, you have to do that to yourself and say, I have made this mistake. We regularly in our organization, we're a people organization. Our staff are the true assets, are human assets of our business. And we regularly make a decision, and at the next management meeting or the internal meetings, we'll make a U-turn and say, guys, we made a decision to do X. It's actually, in hindsight, after trying it, it's not worked out. So we're proud that we're actually going to revert to another idea that we have, and we're going to try this. And I think if you, in whoever it affects, your suppliers, your customers, your bank, your staff, if you're truthful, and transparency is one thing that I think a lot of small and medium-sized businesses shy away from. They shy away from that.
Do you think, when you're looking back, I mean, what do you think the Ruben of today would say to his younger self? I mean, what would be your advice to him?
Listen more to people who don't have a vested interest. It's very difficult to find people who don't have a vested interest. I recently met somebody, and I know you know of him, and this program knows him well, Brad Burton. And even today, I met with him last week. No vested interest in my businesses. I have no vested interest in his. And unknowingly to him, I made several decisions about my business while having dinner with him. unknowingly, just by things he was saying, were validating, or they were, in my mind, they were contradicting my thought process of my business. Entrepreneurs never stop thinking about business. My family would sometimes like it if I stopped thinking about business, but you just can't. I mean, that's the way, you know, you're in a movie, you're watching a movie, you're playing sports. Work is with you. Entrepreneurs live. They have, you know, I find it very difficult to fill in the section anywhere where it says, what are your hobbies? It's very difficult for me to fill that in. It's my business. That's my life. I don't believe it's a business. It's my hobby. It's my passion. But, you know, listening to other people, whatever their experiences are, but not impersonating them, not trying to copy them, but bringing their experiences into your situation. And that was great for me. I mean, he doesn't even realize that. I wish I would have met and listened to more peers. I'm not too strong on the...
It can be quite lonely being an entrepreneur from what I've seen. Because you put yourself nearly on... You have to put yourself nearly on a pedestal because of what you're trying to do.
It's lonely if you live in an opaque shell. And that's why transparency takes away that loneliness. You know, and that's one thing I've learned. It was some of the times that I went through in business were extremely lonely because you lived in this opaque bubble where you didn't let anything or anyone in because you're fearful that if you say to your staff or your suppliers or your customers or your investors or your banker that actually I've made a wrong decision or actually it's not going the way I want it to go, you fear that they're actually going to think less of you. But the actual reverse is true. You're transparent and you know, they always say a problem shares a problem half. You know, today we recently won our Investors in People. And one of the things that came out of that was the fact that our staff loved the fact that we are slowly becoming more and more transparent. And I realized that actually going into one of our management meetings with all the problems that I have as a leader, as a CEO, and sharing them, straight away they're no longer problems of mine, they're problems of everybody. But actually you feel a weight's off your shoulder. But they are people with vested interest because they're in part of your organization. Mentors or peers, just even somebody who may not be in the same business as you, but understands the business, you know, is an entrepreneur. Sharing your problems with them. I have to say that I think that it was only very recently that I realized that you can never steal somebody's business. We all know how to bake a cake. We all can get Jamie Oliver's book of recipe and try to make a pasta. But could me and you make it like he does? He gives you the ingredients. He gives you everything. But we can't make a pasta like him. Unfortunately,
a little bit of magic, isn't it?
There is something. You can't... entrepreneurs in Britain, more so the British culture, they don't want to share. They're scared. I mean, NDAs, for example, non-disclosure agreements. I mean, yes, they are needed sometimes, but if I was to sit down and explain everything we do in our business, how we do it, would somebody be able to do what we do?
But they often say that, don't they? They often say that I could tell you how to build a rocket to fly to the moon. Yeah. It doesn't mean you're actually going to go and do it. And there's a lovely story when you see the whole internet marketing world, where you will have the American evangelists who will come over, and you may have gone to some of these, and they will say, here is a 10 CD set. This 10 CD set will change your life. It will show you how to set up your business and how to go about doing this, that and the other. 10 CD set. And what happens is that people will spend £7,000, £8,000 because it's like they've got a box of the instructions to do it. They'll take it home, they'll put it under the bed, and they'll say to themselves, do you know what? That's my insurance policy. One day I'm going to do that. And I know of a company that produced some of the content for one of these, and two of the CDs had nothing on them. And they sold thousands of them, thousands of sets, and nobody came back and complained. It just makes you think for a second.
But I mean, in business, perception is also reality. You have to bear that in mind. When we're, marketing is the central point of a business to get the vision over. Without customers, you have no business. And I have to say that a lot of businesses don't understand. Sales go up and sales go down, but service stays forever. The way you treat your customers lasts forever.
Right, I'm going to talk a little bit about culture in just a moment. Bit of culture on the programme, a little bit of culture. But if you're just tuning in, you're thinking, Reuben Singh, CEO of alldayPA, what are they all about then? Let's give you a bit of an insight into what the business is about, what the people in the business say about the business that they work for, and what they can do perhaps maybe for your business. Here's a bit of an insight into alldayPA.
The background of alldayPA, the core values have always been the same. It was started on the base of providing small businesses with the ability to compete with large organizations. You cannot replace the human voice. Great websites, great marketing collateral, these are all precursors to getting someone to contact you. We do one thing, we do it very, very well. We answer your phones. We are the first impression for your business.
Being a PA means representing the company in question as one of their staff members. So obviously it's important to me that I convey the same standard, the standard that that company actually want me to.
We have to put ourselves in that we work for that company. We work for that company, so how are we going to help that customer?
The difference with alldayPA boils down to three simple core values. The first is our human assets, our staff, the training that goes into our staff is second to none in the UK. The amount of time that we spend in giving the staff the full training, I think cannot be competed with by anybody in the UK.
We cannot think about anything other than making each call perfect, and that's all we focus on in training. Each call is perfect.
The second core value that we have is the expertise. Collectively, we probably have a few hundred years worth of expertise, knowledge of answering phone calls. So the expertise that we bring for a client is like employing somebody that's been in the industry for a couple of hundred years.
A lot of our staff have been with alldayPA since the very start in '99, many years. So many people started as PAs.
The recruitment process actually gives us some amazing candidates. There's a certain type of person that can do what we do. We all have a certain characteristic here. We can't quite put our finger on what it is, but we all have it.
We've got many different personalities. Every single PA is different. Every single PA is attentive, switched on at the end of the day, with different personalities. But because we're all different, this is why we provide a great service.
We run from 4 operation centres, 3 in Manchester with an office in London. And our 3 operation centres in Manchester, there is no single point of failure. So from signing up on a package that may be nothing more than a few pound a day, £3-4 a day, could give a small business 14 to 15 million pounds worth of technology at their fingertips and a team of 220 staff.
It's not robotic. We are real human beings handling the call. Automated phone systems cannot do this.
To our customers, I think alldayPA has become an extension of their businesses. And when you think that we're asking a lot of a business to say, let us take calls on your behalf, there's a lot of trust that there takes place, and that trust is only gained from our years of continually giving excellent service.
So no matter how good a business you have, if you're in a meeting, your phone's switched off. Your business is closed for business. And that's what we do.
I would describe alldayPA as almost in loco parentis. We are essentially that client's staff member. We are representing their company. We're not just a call handling service, we represent that company.
I'm employed by them for the 3 minutes I'm taking the call, is how I view my place with the member.
We do create an illusion that we work for that company, so we have to have the answer to any question that a customer will ask.
We are only as good as the last call. We have no long-term contracts. We don't ask clients to port their numbers over to us. You just divert the calls to us. And if you feel that something's not right, you can switch off the divert. And that is probably the single most important thing about our service that has kept our clients for so many years. And the one piece of advice I'd give anybody, wherever they go to get their calls answered, don't look at the management of the company first off. Don't look at the brochures. Don't look at the collateral. Look at the people taking the phone calls.
You're watching Business Connections Live. Fantastic. We had a fantastic day up there actually filming that. I love the young lady at the end there who waves goodbye to the call, actually waves goodbye to the call. And I think that was the whole thing that was so clever about the entire day there. You do feel that all these individuals, for the individual 3 minutes that they're working for that particular company, that they are truly working. They're not working for alldayPA. They are, for that moment, they are the representatives of the company that they are speaking about. And it was a real insight, and a very happy company as well. That was the thing that came over. Everybody was kind of buzzing. I don't know whether it's because you put something in their tea that day, but everybody had a real buzz about them. There was that kind of a love about the business, and I hope I'm not sort of painting too rosy a picture, but there was that kind of feeling in the building.
I mean, we always say in our organisation, no matter how large we are, several hundred employees, we're a family. We may not always be a happy family, but we're a family. And I think if you bring people into your thought process, your staff, everyone from our facilities staff all the way through to the chairman, if they're all part of this, knowing what the issues of the day are, everybody starts to understand where the business is going. But you can't get somewhere if you don't know where you're going. You have staff bewildered by what's happening if you don't give them an insight on where you're trying to lead the business to.
Let me ask you that kind of leading question. I mean, you're sitting there, you've got a turban on your head, so your culture. Mm-hmm. Okay, on the phone, you're from Manchester, there's no two ways about it, but your culture has got there are differences, aren't there? Mm-hmm. Or are there? I don't know. I mean, do you think that has helped you?
Well, culturally I'm British. By religion I'm Sikh. And my religion has, I think, has probably been my strongest asset, my identity. And I think every one of us has an identity. What we tend to do is we try to lose what we have to copy somebody else. Whatever our identity is, we should be proud and we should build on that. I believe my turban, the look, my beard, my turban, my religion is I don't cut my hair. So I have a beard, I have a turban, and I think it's the strongest asset. I remember back in 2003, I was invited by the Queen to Buckingham Palace. I was honoured at Buckingham Palace as a pioneer of the nation. And I'd been there a few months before on another Prince's Trust event. And one of the ushers, actually, as I was entering the palace from the forecourt, said, "Oh, the colour of the turban was pink last time." And it took me back. And I was thinking, how would this gentleman, this person who sees thousands of people every day, every week, remember this Sikh guy? I mean, I was wearing a yellow turban, I think, that day. And, a lot of people say to me, have you experienced racism, as you grew up? This sounds bizarre, but honestly, either I'm deaf or too thick-skinned. But I've actually never, has people commented? Yes. Comments, everyone will make a comment. And I'm sure there was playground comments, but that's just usual. And I think you have to look at the fact that you should be proud. If you're not proud of who you are or what you are, how do you expect other people to be proud of that for you? As an
entrepreneur, then, do you think it's important to stand out? We had Tom Higgins on from Goldeye. His company has won awards for British industry, for technology in British industry, and he's been up to the palace as well. He's met the Queen, and he's of a similar opinion. He wears bright coloured shirts. He wears very, very bright, colourful glasses. He looks more like a rock star than a serious business owner. Yet he is always remembered. Do you think the same applies to you?
I think if you feel comfortable, if it is you, then be yourself. But not that, don't start wearing bright shirts and bright glasses if that's not you. But if that's you, I know entrepreneurs who will only ever wear, jeans and a t-shirt, or will only ever wear suits and cufflinks. If that's you, if you're not comfortable in yourself, you can't. I think very quickly people in business start to realize, are you an actor or is that actually you? Are you comfortable in yourself? And that's where you start to find businesses unravel very quickly. If somebody's trying to be, if they've heard what you just said today and somebody says, right, I'm now going to stand out. If that's not their character, you don't need to physically be different to stand out. You don't, just maybe the way you speak. And I know somebody who every time you meet him, he calls you sir. And every time he sees a lady, he calls her madam. He stands out. That's his way he is. But you should never try to change that. I think the great thing about business is there's no uniform. You don't need to be regimental. There is no, you don't have to have a badge. You don't have to look the same. Just be yourself. That's a great thing about business.
Can you be too bland though?
If
Can you be too grey?
If that's the way you are, that's the way you are. I mean, the other thing people need to recognize is not everybody is a leader. Everybody is an entrepreneur. Everybody has an entrepreneurial streak in them. But not everybody's a leader. Not everybody's a manager. In my organization, there's a number of departments that my team keep me well away from because I'm just not suited to run those departments. And that's, again, recognizing as an entrepreneur your strengths and weaknesses.
What about money? How important do you think that is? As an entrepreneur, you're obviously, a measure of success is going to be the money. But do you think people put too much stay on the money?
It's inevitable that money's a byproduct of a business. That's the result of a business. But I think if you chase the money, you'll never grow a company. If your main motivation, when we start, all of us start in business, there is always that initial layer of it's got to be for money. I've got to put food on the table. I've got to get myself a better life. If that becomes the entire ultimate end goal, then I think sooner or later you lose your way. I think if you're truly passionate about what you do and your vision, you stick to your vision and have the quality, money will follow.
Do you reckon we, which is interesting, and it is interesting, do you think that we encourage entrepreneurs enough in this country? Are we there? I mean, if you're an entrepreneur, you go out, you take the risk, you do what you did. You go out there, you start your business, before your A-levels, you have 100 people working for you, you crash and burn, then you come back again. But if you're not a Reuben Singh, do we encourage other Reuben Singhs and other Steve? Do we encourage them enough to get up and to be entrepreneurs?
Again, I think a doctor can be an entrepreneur. A lawyer can be an entrepreneur. I think, do we encourage enough people to go into business? I think it's not seen, I know it's changing now, but it's still not seen as a career. Being a businessman is still not seen as a career. A lot of people still see it as, oh, well, he couldn't be a lawyer and accountant, he didn't have any academic qualifications, so he became a businessman, which I think is wrong. One thing that I do think needs to change, though, is our perception as people looking to start businesses that my first port of call is the bank. And that has to change. I always believe that you need, the reason that in America, when you see businesses go public, several people became billionaires or thousands of people became millionaires. That's because those people had a invested interest initially. I mean, there was a story, I think it was with, when Google went public, I think, of the person, it was actually Facebook, the person who drew murals or painted the entire offices of Facebook. They didn't have the money to give him, so they gave him shares. When he cashed out his shares, it was $130 million.
Wow.
Now, I always...
That's my paintbrush.
Yeah, well, I mean, at the end of the day, but here today, if someone's setting up a business and said, well, I can't pay you guys in cash, I'll pay you in shares, people wouldn't be interested. And that's the American side. People like to diversify in America, which is what I've seen when I've been over there. And I spend a lot of time talking to people in Silicon Valley because of our business and the technologies that we employ in our business. But if you're setting up a very simple example, if you're setting up a sandwich shop, then rather than go to the bank to borrow money, go to the supplier who's going to supply you the bread and say, I'll buy my bread off you, but will you invest in my business? He understands your business more. Or go to a large office block where you're going, your client, and say, well, I'll supply you with all this food for your staff, but I need some investment in my business. In return, I'll give you a discount on your food and I'll give you a stake in the business. And I think going up and down your supply chain, looking for investors. So going to a supplier and saying, don't give me £50,000 worth of credit or £20,000 worth of credit, take a stake in my business. But we're still very, I want the whole cupcake, I don't want to share the wedding cake attitude. That needs to change in this country. It is changing though.
I mean, you said there about the fact that it is changing, which is a good thing. But you also said as well about that maybe mentoring wouldn't be the way that you would work with other businesses. But you do some ambassadorship as well, don't you, for business?
I was appointed under the Tony Blair government and Gordon Brown as an ambassador for entrepreneurship.
What does that mean? You should be an entrepreneur. That's what I'm telling you. Thank you and good night.
I think it's the fact that I think I have to say that I don't think there's any country in the world like Britain. I would say London is the heart of the world, from what I've seen. From anywhere in the world, you know, I feel that we are sitting on something. People in this country don't realize what an asset we have. Our national language is the international language. You know, just everything about what we are. We're the amount of million people we have in this country, in the size of country we are. You know, people say you can get England into Lake Ontario. Lake Ontario is bigger than England or the United Kingdom. You know, we're a very, very small, you know, geographic area. And at one point, they used to say the sun never set on the Queen. With the Commonwealth, you know, we rule the world from here. I don't think, you know, people talk about racism and people talk about access to capital. Sure, these things happen everywhere in the world. So, you know, we actually have the best, I think, ingredients in this country. I mean, America does have, you know, psychologically they're more opening to entrepreneurs. But that's a very small part. I mean, look at the access we have to the global markets. Look at the language that we have. Look at everything we have in this country. And I think people spend too long thinking of, well, if I was in another country, I'd be so much better. I mean, you look at the immigration statistics. How many people want to come to live here? And I think it's like everything, we ourselves as British entrepreneurs, we don't realize what we have. We actually have a brilliant, you know, fertile breeding ground for businesses. We just don't take the opportunities ourselves.
And we should really, shouldn't we? Where do you think you'll be? And I know everybody has a 5-10 year plan. Where will you be in 5 and 10 years' time, do you think?
A few years ago, I would have popped out some answers for you, but it's probably experience has taught me that I hope wherever I am and whatever I'm doing, I'm transparent with the people around me. I'm honest and sincere to myself and to my vision. I don't know. We're growing alldayPA quite rapidly at the moment. We work for 23,000 companies. We would like that to grow. You were up last week at our new head office. We've just opened a new 300-seater call center, so we'd like to grow that as well. And we have Isha Capital, which is our venture capital fund. So we'd like to invest and see some more businesses that we can help grow. But again, it's not a charity.
You want return on it?
Yeah. And I think that's sometimes it's the transparency of meeting somebody and saying, look, this is a trade. I want something for this. Or then it's just networking or just meeting people, entrepreneurs. And that's mentor. I don't believe that I am a mentor. I don't have enough experience yet to be a mentor.
I'm going to ask you to be one in a moment, though, aren't I? I mean, I'm going to ask you to give some words of wisdom and advice, but I'm sure from the experience you've got, you could do it, couldn't you?
I mean, I'm 37 years old. I've been 20 years in business. It's still a long way to go. You know, the people that I look up to are the ones that have guided me. I wish I'd listened to their advice when I was given it many, many years ago. Those people, you know, I've had to recognize and have the humility to go back to them and say, actually, what you said back then was true. I learned the hard way. And I'm sure that people listening to me today will not learn from my experiences as much as I'd like them to do. They will make their own mistakes. But that's the beauty of business. Every day is a second chance. You know, you can get up the next morning, it's a new start to the day, try it again.
It's really good advice. In just a moment, I'm going to ask you to look straight down camera one and really to give some takeaways to other entrepreneurs, to other businesses that are watching you this evening, and maybe so that they, you know, one few chunks of advice that they can go with and maybe apply to their business. If that's okay with you, I'll give you a few moments to think about that. What I'd like to remind you of is who our guest is on next week's program. It's going to be Tracy Carr. She's on the show next week. She's a leadership expert, speaker, coach, and a serial entrepreneur. What we're going to be talking about, though, do you have issues? Do you have problems when it comes to managing your time? Well, maybe Tracy's got the very solution for you. That's what we're going to be doing on next week's show. Don't forget, you can always tweet us as well. You can see there, Business Connect 6. We are going to change that. Brad's told me to do that. If you want to get in touch with us, say you'd like a program just like this one. We can do a program specifically for your business, branded and everything like that, just like this one, talking to your people, to your experts in your business. All you got to do is get in touch with us by simply going to our website at businessconnectionslive.com, or you can give either myself, Steve Hyland, or Linda Bazant a call. You'll be answered by those awfully nice people at alldayPA, but you won't know that on 01784 256 777. It's as simple and straightforward as that. So if you'd like a show just like this one, then that'd be great. And if you'd like to sponsor the program as well, we'd like to invite you to do that as well. Email address, very straightforward. Here it is. It's studio@businessconnectionslive.com. I hope you've enjoyed tonight. It's been a real insight into what being an entrepreneur is all about. Maybe at the very beginning we were sort of saying a lot of people call themselves entrepreneurs, and really what they are, well, Ruben said actually everybody's an entrepreneur, but maybe sometimes they're not as entrepreneurial as they think they are or could be. And maybe tonight's given you a little bit of food for thought, maybe to reflect on what being an entrepreneur is all about, and maybe how you can be more entrepreneurial in the business that you run. And it doesn't mean that you're working for yourself. Of course, you could be working for somebody else, but being entrepreneurial in the role that you've been given. I mean, hopefully, as you said, food for thought tonight. But you can see what can happen. You can start off big, crash, burn, but then you can come back bigger and better like a phoenix out of the ashes from that, and learning lessons from it as well to be bigger, brighter, better. Who knows, that could well be you. Ruben, it's been an absolute pleasure having you with us this evening. We've really enjoyed it. Really has been an absolute pleasure listening to you.
Thank you.
And it's nice to hear the insight and the way that you approach it. You've had your hard times, but my word, you've worked flipping hard to get out of it, haven't you? Ruben, camera number one is all yours. Just say who you are at the beginning, straight down the lens, this one over here, and just a few of those takeaways. This is from the heart to the heart. It's all yours.
I'm Ruben Singh. I'm the CEO of alldayPA, and I've been an entrepreneur now for about 20 odd years in business. What I've learned from my experiences is simply have humility, be humble, recognize your strengths, but more importantly, the strengths of others and your weaknesses. Have determination, have absolute determination to see through to your goal. Never get disheartened. Every day is a second chance, and be sincere. Be sincere to yourself, be sincere to your vision, but more importantly to your staff, your investors, or your customers and your suppliers. And more than anything else, think big. We're in a global village. The world is literally a click away. You can transact with anywhere from Beijing to Silicon Valley online. So think big, set high standards for yourself, and don't think that owning or running a business or setting up a business is easy. It's going to be very difficult. You will probably fail, or you will fail more than you succeed. Failure is good. Accept failure. You learn more from failure than you do from success.
Absolutely fantastic. Thank you ever so much. Great advice. I think I shall use that myself. Every day is a second chance. I think that is a terrific piece of advice for absolutely anybody. Ruben, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on the programme. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
And thank the team back in Manchester as well for looking after our telephone calls, because we appreciate it. We never, ever miss a call. Do call us, have a word with our team who are with All Day PA, and you'll find out more. If you want to find out more about All Day PA, just simply go to the bottom of the programme and you'll see that there's a link there that will take you directly to their website. I've got their website just here. If I'm allowed, we can just go onto their website. Here it is. It is alldayPA.com, and that's the website to tell you everything that you need to know, their telephone answering service, their business sectors, their business size, the packages that they have, some testimonials from customers. We'll have to do a testimonial for you about the business. Also, if you are in a different field, if you are a specialist in the legal industry and you're watching this and you're thinking, that's all very well for general business, but wouldn't it be great if there was a kind of an all-day PA for the legal industry? There is, isn't there?
There is, All Day PA Legal, set up just for the legal
That must have taken
industry.
a long time to think that name up.
Well, our marketing team will be proud of it. It took them a long time. But yeah, we've set up. And that's another thing for entrepreneurs and businesses. You have to realize that you need to start specializing in something in order to be able to talk the language of your clients. You don't expect them to learn your language. You need to learn the language of your clients.
Ruben, thank you very much indeed. And that wraps it up for another week. Tracy Carr, leadership expert, speaker, coach, and serial entrepreneur joins me on next week's programme. We'll be live next Wednesday night at 6 o'clock. But from all the gang here at Business Connections Live, from Ruben Singh, CEO of All Day PA, and from me, Steve Hyland, have yourselves a great Wednesday. Bye for now. Bye-bye. See you soon.